All right, so picture this. A city, right, completely consumed by fear, but not from like war or disease or something, but from something you can't even see,
Yeah.
promising death by axe. Unless, get this, they played jazz.
Oh, wow.
This wasn't some, fever dream or anything. This was New Orleans
Right.
back in 1918, 1919, totally gripped by this mystery of the Axeman.
The Axeman, yeah.
And you brought in some really fascinating stuff on this case, so
I think so.
we're going to dive
Yeah.
into it, the chilling depths of it all.
Yeah, I mean it's really quite theatrical, when you think about it. This whole like a city held hostage by this shadowy thugger with an axe, and the condition for safety is jazz music.
It's like straight out of a nightmare, right?
Yeah, it really is.
So in this deep dive, we're going to try to trace the Axeman's actions, his brutal actions, the lack of any kind of motive like robbery. There's that famous letter that turned the whole city into this massive jazz concert, under the threat of
I've
death.
died of this looming threat. Yeah.
And then all the questions surrounding his identity. Who was this guy? We're also going to look at what it was like back then, especially for Italian immigrants who, as we'll see, were really targeted during this whole thing.
Yeah, and it's really a fascinating look at how fear can just completely take over a community,
Yeah.
and even the most like outlandish ideas can spread and control people's behavior.
Totally. And for you listening, our goal is to pull out the most interesting, insightful parts of this mystery.
Right.
Give you a really good picture of what happened without getting bogged down in every single detail.
Absolutely.
So get comfortable, maybe turn up the lights a little, and get ready for a trip into the dark side of New Orleans history.
Yeah, and I think one thing to really keep in mind is the psychological impact this had on the city, to live with this constant invisible threat, this looming sense of dread.
I mean, how do you even deal with that?
Yeah, exactly.
So the Axeman was active from May 1918 to October 1919, mainly in New Orleans.
Right.
And what's really creepy is his attacks. They followed a very specific pattern.
Yeah.
Like he usually struck at night when people were sleeping, most vulnerable in their own homes.
And when you think about the way he got into their homes, it just paints this really disturbing picture.
Yeah.
Like it was all very deliberate, almost ritualistic,
Exactly. So he would often get in by removing a panel from the back door, usually using a chisel.
Right.
And here's the really weird part. He would always leave the chisel and the panel behind.
Just leave him there.
As if like breaking in wasn't the main thing.
Yeah, almost like it was a signature,
Right.
Like I was here, but without the need to actually break anything.
And then the weapon, almost always an axe, sometimes a straight razor. But what's really chilling is they were often the victim's own tools.
Yeah.
Imagine, being attacked with something you use every day in your own home.
I mean, talk about a violation. Your home's supposed to be your safe space, and then to have it turned against you like that?
It's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, it must have created this sense of fear that just permeated the whole city.
Absolutely. And then there's the motive, or rather the lack of one.
Right.
It wasn't robbery. He always left valuables behind. So it seems like the violence itself was what he was after.
Yeah, so then what does that tell us, right?
Right.
It points to something a lot more disturbing, maybe personal vendettas or just pure sadism. Who knows?
It's really unsettling. And then you look at the victims, mostly Italian immigrants or Italian Americans, a lot of them grocers.
Right.
So naturally, people started thinking it was ethnic targeting, maybe even connected to the mafia, though there wasn't really any hard evidence for that.
And, when you target a specific group like that, it creates so much suspicion and fear, both within the community and outside of it.
Absolutely. So let's look at some of these attacks.
Yeah.
On May 23rd, 1918, Joseph Maggio, he was an Italian grocer, and his wife Catherine, they were attacked in their apartment. Their throats were slashed with a straight razor, and then they were hit with an axe.
I mean, that's just brutal.
Yeah, and they found this message written on the pavement outside their place. Mrs. Maggio will sit up tonight, just like Mrs. Tony.
Oh, wow.
Which seems to be referring to another attack that happened back in 1912.
So like a calling card almost.
Yeah, and then to make things even creepier, they found bloody clothes at the scene, thought to be the attackers.
He changed clothes.
Like he changed right there.
Yeah.
And the razor they used, it belonged to Joseph's brother, Andrew.
So he was a suspect.
Yeah, they looked into him, but nothing came of it.
It's all so strange.
Then in June 1918, there was another attack. Louis Bessumer, another grocer, and Harriet Lowe. Bessumer was hit with a hatchet, and Lowe was badly hurt. And again, the axe was Bessumer's own.
His own axe.
Now, Lowe originally said it was a black man who attacked them,
Oh.
but then later she accused Bessumer, which led to his arrest.
But he was acquitted, right?
Yeah, eventually. But then they found these letters in Bessumer's place, written in foreign languages.
Foreign languages.
Yeah, and that led to all these crazy theories about espionage and stuff.
Wow, so you've got these early attacks, conflicting stories, and all these weird details.
Right.
It's no wonder people were getting more and more uneasy.
Totally. And then in August 1918, there were 2 more attacks.
Okay.
First, Anna Schneider. She was 8 months pregnant at the time.
Oh my gosh.
She was attacked, beaten in the face, her scalp was cut open.
Horrible.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It wasn't an axe this time, it was a lamp, and they actually took a little bit of money.
So maybe not the same guy.
It's possible, right? It's a little different from the other attacks.
Yeah.
But despite all of that, she gave birth to a healthy baby girl just a few days later.
That's incredible.
I know, talk about a will to survive.
Really?
Then just 5 days later, Joseph Romano, an elderly man, also ran a little grocery store out of his house. He was attacked with an axe, and witnesses said they saw a heavy-set, dark-skinned man running away. Now, this description, it doesn't really match some of the later ones we hear about.
Right, so maybe different people, or maybe people were just seeing things, with the fear and the darkness and everything.
Could be, right. So then you have March 1919, and the attack on the Cordemelia family, really tragic.
Yeah.
Charles, Rosie, and their baby daughter, Mary.
Oh, no.
They were all attacked in their home.
In their home.
Yeah, Charles and Rosie had terrible skull fractures, and baby Mary, she didn't make it.
That's just heartbreaking.
And they found the axe on their back porch.
On the porch?
Now, what's really messed up is Rosie, she later accused their neighbors, and they were actually convicted.
What?
But then she admitted she lied.
Oh, my goodness.
So they were eventually cleared, but it just shows how this fear, it could lead to some terrible things.
It really does. It's like this ripple effect of tragedy.
Yeah, and then in August and September of 1919, you have Steve Boca, a grocer. He's attacked in his bed, survives, but doesn't remember anything.
Okay.
And Sarah Lohman, she's attacked in her apartment. They find a bloody axe on her lawn.
So it's just continuing.
Yeah, and then finally, in October 1919, Mike Pepitone becomes supposedly the last victim.
The last one.
His wife wakes up, sees a man with an axe running away.
And that's it.
That's it. And she could only say that he was large.
And then, just like that, it stops.
It's like he vanished.
Yeah, but I bet that silence was almost as scary as the attacks themselves.
Oh, absolutely. But right in the middle of all this, you have this event. It's maybe the most bizarre part of the whole story. The letter, the night of jazz, it's crazy.
Your letter, right?
So March 13th, 1919, this letter, claiming to be from the Axeman, it shows up in the newspapers.
In the newspaper.
And this isn't just some note. This is like a declaration, from someone saying they're a spirit and a fell demon from hottest hell.
I mean, that's pretty dramatic, right?
Talk about spooky, right?
Yeah.
And he goes on to say he's going to attack again on March 19th, 12:15 a.m.
Oh, wow.
But then he says, anyone playing jazz at that time will be spared.
Jazz music.
Jazz music. So can you imagine what people in New Orleans thought?
I mean, that's got to be surreal, right?
This city where jazz is like in its DNA.
Yeah.
And now it's their only defense against this axe murderer.
Wow.
So what do? They turn the whole city into a jazz concert.
They're not taking any chances.
Dance halls are packed. People are playing music in their homes. Everywhere you go, jazz music.
And no attacks.
Not a single one on March 19th.
So it worked.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it was the music. Maybe he just changed his mind. Maybe it was all a big hoax.
Yeah, because some people think the letter was fake, right?
Maybe some musician trying to get attention, especially since a song called The Mysterious Axeman's Jazz came out around the same time.
Huh. That is interesting.
So who's this Axeman? Well, there are a few theories, but none of them are conclusive.
Right.
One name that pops up is Joseph Monfrey. Some crime writers talk about him, but there's not much evidence he even existed.
So kind of a ghost story?
Yeah, more like a spooky legend than a real suspect.
It's frustrating, right?
Totally.
All these years, and we still don't have a clear answer.
Exactly. Then there's Frank Doc Mumphrey. He owned a jazz club, and apparently his business did really well after the whole letter thing.
That's interesting.
And get this, he used an alias, Leon Joseph Monfrey.
No way.
Yeah, so Maybe a coincidence, maybe not. Who knows?
That's a little too close for comfort.
And then there's this retired detective who thought maybe the killer had a split personality, like Jekyll and Hyde,
Okay, yeah.
which could maybe explain the violence and the weird letter.
And you can't rule out copycats, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Especially with all the attacks and how spread out they were. Maybe not all of them were by the same person.
Yeah, makes sense.
Then there's the whole supernatural angle, because of the letter and how he just seems to disappear.
Right, like a ghost.
But that's not really supported by any evidence. It just adds to the creepiness of it all.
Yeah, but you can understand why people would think that, right?
Oh, absolutely. When you can't explain something, your mind goes to some pretty dark places.
Totally.
There's also the Joseph Mumfre theory again, because years later in Los Angeles, Esther Pepitone, the wife of the last victim, she killed a man named Joseph Mumfre.
She killed him?
Yeah, said he was the Axeman and had threatened her.
Wow.
And apparently, this Mumfre was part of a gang that blackmailed Italians in New Orleans.
Which fits with the victims.
It does. But again, no real proof he was the Axeman.
So frustrating.
So I guess what we're left with is this. The Axeman of New Orleans, one of America's biggest unsolved mysteries.
Absolute.
Brutal violence, that crazy jazz letter, and no clear motive.
Yeah, it's a story that just sticks with you, you know?
For sure, and it makes you think about how fear can take hold of a whole city.
And how something so bizarre can become part of a city's history, its legends, you know?
So here's a question for you, and for everyone listening. Was the Axeman one guy, this master of disguise, who knew how to tap into people's fears?
Yeah.
Or was he, in a way, a symbol of those fears? Something that maybe even inspired other people to do terrible things?
That's a good point. Like he became something bigger than just one person.
Yeah, the music stopped. But the questions about the Axeman, about what really happened in New Orleans, they're still there.
Still there, and they probably always will be.
This deep dive is just the beginning. There's so much more to this story, so many dark corners to explore. What questions are you left with?